What is a word or a phrase that we should no longer use in the workplace?
I think a word that I hear often is scary.
Scary, really?
Yes.
In the workplace?
Yes.
Ooh, that's scary.
Yeah.
Like a little spider in the corner, like, ooh, that's scary.
Yeah.
So I have an intro for you.
Okay.
And I've prepared it. I'm going to read it. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Brandi Corbello is the SVP of Global Delivery at Indico Data. She's the former VP of Transformation at Cushman & Wakefield. And her LinkedIn profile says she's skilled in RPA, NLG, NLP, and ML, among other things.
Yeah.
What do you do?
That's a really good question. So at Indico, what I do is I really focus on the customer journey. So
Okay.
think about the point in time, somebody is evaluating technology and they're getting really serious about buying it. That's really where I start playing a role. Like, you're interested in Indico can solve the pain that you've identified, and then they become a customer. When they become a customer, then they have to really implement the technology, they have to adopt it, they have to expand with it, they have to actually capture value. So I really own the end-to-end of that customer journey and thinking about not just acquiring the technology, but what does it take to capture value out of it.
Got it. Okay, that helps so much. Thank you. So you're helping improve the customer experience by understanding the customer journey.
For us, we really think about what pain are you trying to solve, right?
Okay.
Number one. Number two, a lot of technology vendors will say that they can solve the whole thing, and I think that's where technology companies, I think that's where a lot of technology companies have gone wrong, right? Because most of them can't solve it all. So we really focus on could we actually solve that for you? Yes or no, and we're very transparent and honest with them. If we can, then we really talk to them a lot about an honest way to think about solving that pain and what it would take to actually do that. I think technology over the last decade, maybe even longer, has just set unrealistic expectations of you just turn this thing on and it works.
I'll take 7 widgets and flip them on by Monday, please.
Yeah. So I think that's why it's really important to focus on the customer journey and what it really looks like or means.
How does that play into sort of our topic of today, which is authenticity? How do you connect those dots?
1000%. So it's interesting, there are many vendors in our space and competition is ripe in the technology space. People are moving quickly all the time, and many of our competitors and us are similar, right? The tech looks very similar. It looks and feels a little bit different, but really it's all doing the same thing. So for us, it's interesting. We've gotten a few new customers this year, acquired a few new customers this year, and we asked them, why did you choose us?
Right.
Why did we win? And
what would they say? I'm so intrigued.
Yes. So literally number one is always people. That
transparency is interesting, and how that's playing such a superpower strength for you in your role, because I think of you kind of as an unfiltered person in a lot of ways, whether it's in a conversation or a post on LinkedIn. So it's interesting how that's you're really leaning into that.
Yeah, you have to. And I think it's not just for our customers, but it's also for the teams that report into me, right? Yeah. And I think a lot of times, as long as you're authentic, I think the thing is we're all human, right? And we all have to really understand one another and where we're at. And
except for Demian.
Never.
He's part machine, part human. That's what makes him so
51-49.
Yeah. Mostly human. Yeah.
I could totally see that. So it's it's really important to be able to tell somebody that's really not a good idea, right? And here's why, right? I tell people all the time, your best friends aren't the friends that tell you all of your decisions are amazing. Your best friends are the ones that will tell you hey, you kind of made a mistake there, right? You could have done a little bit better in that situation.
Right. I feel my best friend's kids is maybe ease off the gas a little bit with those, Apparently I'm making lots of mistakes all the time. But you know what? They're pretty good friends if you think about it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I get it now.
Yeah, but the thing is, and I think a lot of people are scared to say no or try to tell people to think about things differently because they won't like them, or this there's this perception of oh, they're mean or evil, and there's a way to help guide people there. And by the way, I'm not always right either. Like, had I told that prospect, I don't think you should evaluate us this way and here's why, and they said, no, I absolutely need to, like, definitely you should, like, listen to them and figure out, like, well, does that actually make sense for you with where you're at in your journey? Maybe it does. I kind of gave you, like, you know, my experience and what I've seen, and you're still, like, comfortable with that. Like, I'm okay with that, and I'll help you along the way. But it's, like, making sure that we're all on the same page and going in that direction together.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what's the secret? Don't give a shit? Or, like... Because
Yeah.
really, kind of what you said earlier, it comes down to your concern about how they're going to think about you or perceive you.
Yeah.
Right? And if you do care about that, you might think twice before telling them no.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would say, like, don't give a shit. But, like, even myself, like, I'm sensitive, right? And, like, I don't ever want to hurt people's feelings or let people down. And I do sometimes, like, catch myself, like, ooh, like, dwelling in, like, maybe I took it a little too far. But it's like... But then you always come back to, like, were my values in line when I did that? And if the answer is yes, then I think that's how you're like, okay, my values were in place. I wasn't being unethical. I was actually trying to help them. Even though my feelings were hurt now because they reacted in, like, a negative way, like, I did lead with, like, values.
Yeah, for sure. And you can always feel the difference. I don't know that everybody is sort of self-assessing in that way.
Yeah.
Where they're like, did I align with my values as I was speaking to this person? But when people who sort of do that, you can kind of, it feels right.
Yeah,
or
it feels genuine.
off if it's not happening.
Yeah.
It feels genuine. So speaking of authenticity, a little bit of a curveball question here. What is a word or a phrase that we should no longer use in the workplace?
I think a word that I hear often is scary.
Scary, really?
Yes.
In the workplace?
Yes.
Ooh, that's scary.
Yeah.
Like a little spider in the corner, like, ooh, that's scary.
Yeah.
That or something else?
Yes. And I've literally, like, and it's often enough where it's like, I've gotten to the point when I hear it, I kind of stop in that moment and I say, can you, like, define scary? Because if I'm sending, like, chills down your spine with this one question, like, we have a bigger problem.
Yeah. Like Halloween-y scary, or are we talking about something in a business context here?
Yeah, I mean, like, scary is a huge word. So I think, like, that is such an interesting word. And you ask people, like, well, why did you just say scary, right? They're like, well, you were, like, assertive, or you were very direct, and you know, like, you kind of said it with a straight face. And I'm like, and that's scary?
So it's when they're talking about you, giving you feedback about something you said?
No, they'll just say, like, I'm scared of you, or you're scary.
You're scary.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Got it. All right. Not just like this table is scary, but Brandi, you're scary.
Yeah.
And it's the way that you interact?
Well, I think, you know, a lot of times they're not used to people being, like, direct and kind of, I'm very, like, to the point, right? And, like, real. So I think, you know, sometimes, like, they'll say, like, scary, and then I'll say, well, can you describe that more? Well, you were assertive, or you were very direct and, like, concise in what you said to me. And I'm like, okay, so why don't we use the word, like, you're assertive, or you're direct or concise? Like, why is that scary to you? And, you know, I think a lot of times they're like, well, I just didn't know, like, if I was, like, in trouble. And I'm like, did I say you did anything wrong, right? And by the way, if you did do something wrong, like, failure is okay in the workplace.
Right.
And I do think we're still, like, at this weird point where, like, it seems like sometimes failure still isn't acceptable. And, like, I love a good failure, right? Because you can learn so much from it. But you have to be very honest, like, that was a failure. Whether that's scary or not, like, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I find that when you're perfect, you never fail, so nothing's really that scary in the first place, you know? So start out by being perfect.
There's only a few of us.
Yeah, very few. Well, it's funny because I think the scary part is they're reacting to their feeling.
Yeah.
Not necessarily what you did. What you did triggered a feeling, and then they felt fear maybe, or it took them off guard.
Yeah.
So scary is the word they use, but it's not like you're scary.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I think a lot of times in the workplace we just aren't used to it, right?
Yeah,
like we lead by, like, consensus, and we lead by feelings versus just, like, matter of fact.
Right. Yeah. I think that's spot on for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is that I find your sort of unfiltered approach to communication refreshing. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And I actually pulled a few LinkedIn posts that I just wanted to unpack
Okay.
that I think would be kind of fun. Disney princesses of the 80s and 90s really fucked us, Gen X and millennial women, and our perception of friendship, partnership, and how we treat one another.
Yeah.
That was just like, boom, right out of the gate, that's your headline.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, give me some context there. Where was that going and why did you share that?
Yeah, I think, like a lot of times, I mean, I've been able to separate myself from this, but just observing as a leader, I have a lot of women on my team and I like love having like nice diverse team. And what you find is like my generation and like the generation ahead of us, like it's still so competitive. Like they are still very much competing against one another and they like point out each other's like weaknesses before they point out their strengths. So like, as a leader, I saw it when I was coming up, but as a leader, I really started observing it and like watching it unfold. So I started like digging into it a little bit because I would say Gen Zers, like they like love each other, right? They're like each other's best friends. They like pump each other up. Like they're like hype men all day. So I'm like, why us? What happened to us? So I kind of like went back in time and I was like, man, these like Disney movies we watched with all these princesses like are pretty interesting compared to what they are now, right?
Sure,
so like
very different.
If you look at a few of the like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, like the woman was kind of like on her own and like the supporting characters were typically male.
Right.
And the antagonist was typically another woman. And why they didn't like them was because of their strengths. So like what I started doing with my teams, like the women specifically, is I would bring them into my office and I would like put up like Disney princesses and I would say, what do they have in common?
I thought you were going to say, which one are you and how should we fight about each one?
I know, right? That's a better way to identify. But like I do think like we grew up on this like women specifically, like in our generation, this like emotion of like, and it's just a movie. There are other factors, obviously. But like all these movies that we grew up to learn and we wanted to be these people basically like taught us subconsciously that like men were going to be your supporting characters and like women weren't going to like you for your strengths. And by the way, they would definitely call you out for it. So I think like for me, like if I really like think about that and unpack it, like I do think like this whole like princess notion like impacted women in our generation and the one ahead.
No, with all of that in mind, do you think it's still possible to enjoy Little Mermaid?
Totally.
Okay, cool.
The songs are amazing.
Because I love Little Mermaid, and I think it tested. I in fact recorded all of the songs when I was a kid with my little tape player next to the TV. I just set it next to the TV and hit record, and I just terrible recordings.
Best songs ever.
Best songs ever.
So like
Under the Sea. That's.
Exactly. But I will say Flounder in the newest Little Mermaid, I was very disappointed by.
I haven't seen it yet.
He should have been way more exciting looking.
Okay. Maybe missed an opportunity there.
Yeah, I think so.
Here's another one that I really liked. Got a little kick out of, got a little laugh. If you received a resume and the first hobby noted on the resume was American Ninja Warrior, what would your first thought be? And I'm thinking, I don't know, that's kind of weird. And yours, you follow up with, mine was douchebag.
Yeah.
But the interview was already scheduled, so I had to follow through with it. To be clear, my definition of douchebag is a Brad or Chad, royal jerk with an inflated ego and low intelligence.
Yeah.
That's a great definition of a D-bag. But, that was a post about somebody that you interviewed, right? And did you end up hiring that person?
We did.
Okay. So were they a douchebag?
No.
Okay.
But I think the thing is, so this is like pre-COVID.
Okay.
And this is actually a post for somebody who inspires me. And that person is actually somebody who inspires me now.
Yeah, totally.
Right? So pre-COVID, what would happen, right, is, and this happens now post-COVID, but pre-COVID you would interview in person.
Yeah.
But this interview was scheduled, and being like the procrastinator I can be at times, I like pulled up the resume 10 minutes before walking in and I just see American Ninja Warrior as like hobby number 1 and I'm like, oh my God.
Douchebag.
I have to go talk to this kid.
Yeah.
Like, douche.
It's a good thing that you're a procrastinator.
Yeah. So I walk in, like you walk
in.
So
he does a cartwheel backflip in. A little American Ninja Warrior kind of taste test for you.
He was already in the room, so I didn't get to see anything. But I walk in and I'm like, wow, he doesn't really look like a douchebag.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see like how he speaks, right?
Right.
And like come to find out he's like the best employee we ever hired. Like
Wow.
totally not my perception, but I think like the whole like moral of that story is like you can't like judge a book by its cover, right? And like
Right.
I could have totally gone in like I'm not gonna hire this guy because of this hobby, but I was kind of forced into giving him an opportunity to speak for himself, and it definitely changed my mind about how I read hobbies on resumes now.
Right, for sure. Well, I mean, you know, did you talk to him about that?
Yeah.
And you were like, maybe put that like towards the end or
Yeah,
something.
he knows. But what's really great about him is we ended up doing like there's an American Ninja Warrior gym here in Chicago.
Yeah.
And we took the team
you
there
did?
for some
Nice.
like some activities.
Was he good?
Yeah, he's really good.
Okay, well, he better be if that's
Yeah.
on your freaking first point on your resume. Okay, here's one more. If we show who we really are at work, people reject us or think we are weak. That's on my mind constantly. When I entered the workforce over a decade ago, I was a bit of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde when it comes to work Brandi and social Brandi.
Yeah.
Is that still the case?
No.
Changed.
Totally.
Morphed.
Yeah.
Became one.
Yeah. I think that, and I do think, I still struggle with this a little bit, and I think a lot of people struggle with, you know, like, how are we supposed to show up to work, right?
Yeah.
And, like, because people will say, like, oh, that wasn't very professional. Or, you know, like, they'll make comments like, wow, that reaction was a little emotional. And it's like...
Aren't we humans? Don't we have emotions?
Exactly. So, like, a lot of times, like... So as I was coming up, you know, I was very much, like, professional. Like, I didn't share about my life. I, you know, there's no joking. Like, it was just, like, work. Like, I'm here to work. And then when I leave, I will be myself. And, like, that's where I find fulfillment. I began becoming friends with people at work because you're with them all the time, right? And, you know, it was funny. Like, they would call me out at work. They're like, Brandi, you're way funnier than this. Like, just be yourself. And I was like, oh, no. Like, this is work. And we are here to work and get promoted. And I will not get promoted if somebody hears, like, that I think that idea is dumb. And so I'm just going to take it in. But I will say then, you know, becoming a leader, I realized a lot of times, even me when I was coming up looking at leaders, it's like you think that they're, like, not human. And they're, like, these, like, superheroes that can do anything and everything and can't be harmed. And becoming a leader, I realized the best way for my team to, like, get to know me, because I can't be with them every day, right?
And it's a big team, right? How many people are on the team?
On my team now, there's around, like, 20.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And are they spread out?
Spread out. Like, so, like, what I started doing is on calls, I would share, like, something that was, like, human about me, right? Like, I was like, guys will never believe, like, my electric went out, this electrician, like, did this, and then it didn't work, and now I'm, like, still sitting here with, like, no electric, right?
Yeah.
Like, so something dumb, right? But, like, showing that, like, I have the same problems they have, like, this, like, these, like, tedious things, like, just being, like, human and having to deal with, like, kind of, like, shitty things. And a lot of times, so when I first started doing that, people would say, I really appreciate when you share something, like, human about you. Because it just, like, makes them, like, kind of, like, calm down a little bit, right? Like, they don't have to be on their, like, A game with me. Like, we're all, like, human. We're at the same level. And then, you know, like, you know this, like, as soon as I got diagnosed with cancer, I just realized that everybody is going through something. And a lot of it is invisible in the workplace because typically they're, like, dealing with it behind closed doors. And that really, like, led me to get deep with my team and understand, you know, who they are and what they were about outside of work.
So is that something you kind of flip that switch right away, right when you were diagnosed, or did it take some time to sort of figure that out?
Yeah, it definitely took me some time. So, like, what I started doing is I started sharing my cancer journey with my team.
Yeah.
You know, like, I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. For the next 13 months, I'm going to be going through treatment. I'm going to let you guys, like, along the journey with me. And then what that allowed, like, my team to do is, like, really start opening up to me about, like, things that were going on in their life that had nothing to do with work, right? But what I've found, too, is, like, understanding what people on your team are going through outside of work allows you to, like, understand how they are showing up, right? So, like, if they have, like, you know, like, a death in the family and, like, they're, like, kind of going, like, off the cuff on somebody, you know, people are like, man, they're so snappy. And I'm like,
Right.
yeah, somebody just died.
Yeah.
Like, give them
of
a
course.
break.
Right.
Do you know what I
compassion,
mean?
some
Like,
understanding. Yeah.
this isn't
absolutely.
their norm. And so, like, getting okay and comfortable with accepting, like, this isn't their norm. They're clearly going through something. Like, just accept it. Like, do I think that they should have lashed out? No. But, like, clearly, like, something is, like, triggering them to be a little bit more emotional than normal. But
sure.
it's, like, again, like, I think a lot of times it's like, oh, at work it's like, oh, you're so emotional right now. Can you handle this? And it's like, yes, just let me, like, ride the wave and I'll come back to normal, right?
Right. So, that is a massive life event
Yeah.
that set you on that path, and you were sort of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde before that. But how, like, was it scary? Were you concerned about, like, the unknown of what people were going to react to when you started sharing your journey? Or was it kind of like, screw it, like, I don't even care, I'm just going to do it? Or did you have an idea of how you wanted that to go?
Yeah, I kind of went, like, screw it, like, opened up the floodgates.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, I don't have to share everything.
You went a little too far. Yeah.
So I'm like, there's, like, balance,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And I do think, like
that's a really good point to bring up, because I feel like a lot of people talk about, like, you got to be more vulnerable, more empathetic, more compassionate, share your stuff. But there is a balance.
Yeah, because you still have to be, like, as a leader in the workplace, you have to be respected, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, some people could take certain things going on in your personal life, because what it means to you could be different than what it means to them. So they could react to it negatively or think differently of you. So I think it's like, what do you share, and, like, how much of it do you share with your team, and what does that really look like?
Yeah.
So, like, it's like, I probably, like, went a little too far, and now I'm, like, finding the balance. But I'm a firm believer, I hear a lot of times, like, work-life balance, and I'm like, I'm a firm believer in, like, work-life integration, right? So, like, you need to be able to integrate, because it's one life, right? There's not these, like, separate things. Like, it's your life and it's my life, but they're coming together in this particular chapter, right?
Right, for sure. And the good, light at the end of the tunnel, you're 4 years cancer-free,
Yeah,
which is amazing.
I know,
Congratulations,
I'm
that's incredible.
Yes.
And then I think what that does lead to, when you're real and authentic and unfiltered, is having honest conversations
Totally.
built on trust
Yep.
that you couldn't otherwise have.
Yeah, totally. But I'm, like, now at this inflection point where, like, I no longer have to do that, right? And it actually behooves me to continue to, like, behave that way in the workplace, because I have earned my seat at the table.
Right.
So now, even for me, like, I'm going through this whole new transformation, right? Which is, like, being silent but not being silenced. So how do you think about, like, influencing, like, a little bit differently, right? Like, really, like, intentionally, like, listening to people and helping them, like, on their journey versus, like, telling them their journey.
You use the word behooves,
Yeah.
which I feel like it would be kind of fun to try to see how many times you could work the word behoove into a conversation, but until people notice. I'm going to try that. The other thing
I don't
is,
say it often.
I know, but when you pull it out, you mean it. And I used it yesterday, I think. And I was like, I just said behooves. And I liked it.
Yeah, it's like the reading,
Well, you were talking about a cow, so
I was. It
The
was a little
cow
bit more.
behooved you.
Yeah.
it's different.
It was a punchline to a joke. There's so many days where I show up and I feel like I wasn't happy with how I showed up in a conversation, or I look, looking at the game film and I'm like, you said something that, like, wasn't aligned with your values, or, like, you really had an emotional reaction, and, like, you didn't show up with your best version of yourself. And I think going back to your, like, understanding where people are with their life, not just at work, but they might have some hardship, and that might be sort of filtering into their life.
I do think, like, we're faster to forgive others than we are ourselves.
Totally,
right?
for sure.
And I think, like, I wish I knew the secret to forgiving myself faster, right? Or, like, just getting comfortable.
Get on with it. Let's get over this. I don't
No,
like
like,
this.
I was hiking, last week, and I was just like, I, like, dwelled on, like, the last, like, year of, like, bad conversations I've had. And I'm like, man, I could have really done that differently.
Yeah.
But it's like, again, but I don't think about the bad conversations like the person next to me had.
Totally.
Like,
And that's a good reminder, is, like, nobody else is thinking about all that stuff that you're thinking about yourself.
no.
So, like, if you're that type of person who dwells, and I think a lot of people are, and I am, Nobody else is thinking about that.
If you like have empathy, right, and you feel like you negatively impacted somebody with like words or action, like you will like consume it, right? And I think that's the hardest thing is just self-forgiveness.
For sure.
Which I haven't quite figured out either, so.
So if anybody has any tips, we would love to know.
Yes,
We'd love
let us know.
Please send them our way.
Yes.
Brandi, this is awesome. I definitely highly recommend that anybody who's on LinkedIn follows Brandi and gets a little bit of a dose of that unfiltered, sort of refreshing, very authentic and not fake at all experience, because I think that's one of the things is like on, especially on LinkedIn, I just like it's oversaturated with like lip service, and it's boring, honestly.
I agree.
Entertain me.
Yeah,
okay?
Give me something.
Give me some juicy stuff, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Or just, be real, I guess, is the thing.
Yeah, just be yourself, like, I mean, don't take it too far, but...
Right. Balance out. We're talking about that. You can take it too far.
Yeah.
You need to kind of, ride the...
But be yourself, right?
Yeah. And the keyword authenticity, which I feel like is totally overused.
Oh, it totally is.
So it's hard to even say. When I even say it, I kind of cringe a little bit.
Yeah.
How authentic is authenticity?
Yeah.
I don't even know. Very meta. Brandi, thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome.